Hello, our esteemed viewers, and welcome to our top-notch education consultancy programs. In our today's program, we'll be dealing with the set books as usual. And remember that we have been studying Fathers of Nations, the Samaritan, Silent Song, and we also want to introduce Parliament of Owls. Our esteemed viewers, I would like to give a brief of the Parliament of Owls by Adipo Sidang'S. This is a political satire that needs a very keen interpretation, because remember that this text will be tested in English paper 3, and that is essay writing from the optional set books. So our students are exposed to 3 optional set books that they can choose from. Number 1 is Parliament of Owls. Number 2 is The Silent Song and Other Stories. And number 3, Artist of the Floating World. So out of the 3, the candidate or the student can choose which text to deal with. So in our today's production, we'll be talking about the Parliament of Owls. Of course, we have been talking about the Silent Song, and we have actually tackled quite a number of stories, but we'll still continue to do the same. But this is an introductory program for Adipo Sidang'S Parliament of Owls. And I want to be very categorical when it comes to this text, that it doesn't follow the traditional way of studying at the set book. Because the moment we go the traditional way, we shall have lost it, and our students and candidates shall have lost it as well. So the best method, if you want to deal with the Parliament of Owls, is to look at the societal issues, the vices and the virtues that we have in the society, because at the end of the day, that is what will be tested. So it must be given the issue-based approach, not the approach that we give in paper 2. So as we have been talking about Silent Song, and we pick on issues that deal with the same, that is the same procedure that we need to use when we are reading Adipo Sidang'S Parliament of Owls. So I wanted to make that very clear so that our teachers and our students are aware of the task that is ahead of them, that we are going to be writing the essay out of this text. Now let me just give a brief of Act 1, Parliament of Owls. As I've said, this is a very political text, and you must have the political eye for you to understand it. And the teachers must be very keen when breaking it down to our students. Now, at the beginning of this text, I would want to introduce 3 birds here. Number 1 is the red string. Number 2 is Osoko. Number 4 is Telltale. And the last one is Arumtidi. And their political role, because that is actually what is the gist of the matter. So as I've said, we will be discussing Osoko, we'll be discussing Telltale, we'll be talking about the red string, and finally we'll be talking about Arumtidi. And what kind of political scenario do these birds represent? Remember, this is an analogy, because it is more like the animals kingdom that at one point we read. But in this time round, we'll be talking about the birds kingdom. So when you look at this text, at the very beginning, when red strings meets Osogo, there are certain things that you need to put as your background, because it will help you to interpret the text. And these I would call the atrocities that have been perpetrated by the Parliament of Owls. Atrocities that have been perpetrated, because that is what comes out very clearly at the beginning of this text. And one of them is that these Parliament Owls make rules, or what we call the laws, and they cannot abide by those rules. So that is point number 1 that you need to know. It is captured well in the beginning of the text. Number 2 is violating the right to life, because at the beginning of the text, we are aware that 33 birds of the Osogo type have been killed, 33 of them. And that means that there is a lot of violence. This is being perpetrated by the Parliament of Owls. They killed 33 of the Osogo type of birds. Number 3 is the violating of the right to life. And that comes out very well because of the 33 birds, or the 33 osogos that have been killed. Now, there is also the bit of intolerance. Intolerance comes very well because the birds are not supposed to speak their minds. They're not supposed to speak the truth. And the red string says, freedoms have limits, and also rights come with responsibilities. But do they really follow that rule? Because when birds want to talk about the 33 osogos that have been killed, then it comes up with this phrase that freedom comes with limits and rights also come with a responsibility. So it is a kind of trying to gag the birds so that they don't speak the truth. Then there is the fifth bit is usurping power and abusing the same with impunity. How does this happen? Red string says power will still remain in the hands of the night birds or the omnivores at the expense of the other birds. That power will still remain with the night birds or the so-called the omnivores at the expense of the other birds. So you can see that this part of the kingdom that is in leadership, the parliament of outs, they insist that power will still remain with them as the omnivores, and it will never cross over to the other side. So these are the aspects that we need to look at. The sixth is killing and murdering of grain eaters and day birds. So there is a lot of violence. They kill the other birds, the grain eaters, and the day birds. So these are aspects that as a teacher, you really need to bring out to your students so that we begin to see the political antagonism that is in this text and the satire that actually is brought out when you read the Parliament of Oaths. So after that conversation between the red string and Osogo, we are able to see the background of this fight. There is an introduction. What is it going to, how is the text going to unveil itself? It is going to be a very political exercise. Now, having met Osogo at the beginning of the text, then the second bit of Act 1 now talks about the conversation now between the red string again and Telltale. Telltale is a kind of a bird that spreads the propaganda from the Parliament of Oaths previously. That is how you need to understand this text. And he spread a bad propaganda, and that led to the killing of the Osogo birds. And now they want to use it again to spread another propaganda because they are coming up with the new rules, what they call new rules that will actually govern how birds are supposed to operate at night. That is the rule that they call the moonlight bill. So they are coming up with a new bill, and they want someone who can spread the propaganda about this bill so that the other birds accept the bill. And that is why the so-called the red string is actually the power broker in this text. So he's been sent by the Parliament of Oaths to get those who will spread the propaganda. So it is a kind of Mr. Fix-It or a power broker when it comes to this text. So they have picked on the bird called Telltale. And what is the role of Telltale in this exercise? There is an attempt to buy Telltale to spread propaganda to cover up for the wrongdoings of Parliament of Oaths. So that bit must come out. The role of Telltale in this case is to spread propaganda about the new bill they call the Moonlight Bill that is about to be brought as part of the rules that govern the birds' kingdom. Then Telltale insists he is on the side of the other birds. So he is not going to be used again this time round to spread the wrong propaganda, because the other time he spread the propaganda and they ended up killing 33 Osogos. So it means that he is actually pulling out from the side of the Parliament of Oaths, and now he is in support with the other birds. Now, he is accusing the other birds of probably hooting, looting, screaming, squawking, and belching. And therefore, he is not going to be part of that kind of scheme where they use the other birds for their own benefits, but not for the benefits of the birds. Now, additionally, he is supposed to talk about the new the new tax that they are going to introduce as allowance to make sure that the kingdom is protected at night. So they want to engage the services of Telltale actually also to introduce this new tax. So that is the kind of the political environment that we really need to understand to get to the bottom of this book. Then there is a Moonlight Bill that, as I've said, and it's supposed to come after the killing, or what we call the massacre of the 33 Osogo birds. So that is what is happening. Then we have the red strings fail to convince Telltale to actually take up the job of spreading this propaganda. And that is when now the third part comes. We remember we are still Act 1 scene. Without the scene, of course, here we just have the acts. So at this level, Telltale has refused to take up the responsibility of becoming a propagandist. And therefore, Arum Tidi now comes. That is the next bird that comes. And they want to enlist the services of Arum Tidi actually to spread the propaganda so that the new bill comes in force. That is the Moonlight Bill that will make sure that birds that are making a lot of noise are actually gagged so that they don't make that noise at night. It is a kind of trying to gag the freedom of speech because they know they have done an atrocity by killing 33 Osogos. They need a situation where this thing does not spread. And because they want to make sure that people are gagged, that they don't talk about this, they would enlist the services of Arum Tidi. And we realize that at the end of this act, Arum Tidi accepts to be misused by the Parliament of Owls. He actually takes the responsibility to be the one who would be in charge. Of course, he takes this position when they have actually blackmailed Telltale. How have they blackmailed Telltale? When Arum Tidi arrives, the red string says that Arum Tidi had actually accepted the offer, but they had only disagreed at the level of how much is going to be paid. So it looks like they are trying to blackmail Telltale. They refused to take up the responsibility, but still they are going to use how he has refused to take this responsibility that he had accepted, but they only disagreed at the level of payment. So Arum Tidi is now used instead of Telltale now to be the propagandist, and he actually accepts that responsibility, and therefore they are very happy that he's going to take up the matter, and they are going to spread it and make sure that the Moonlight Bill is passed and the new tax that comes with it is also passed and goes through. So thank you very much. I just wanted to highlight on Act 1, and you need to understand this book, and you need also to understand that it is a political satire, and you also need to understand that in this book we are not going to discuss things to do with characters. We are not going to deal with issues of the style. Here it is pure issues, and we must make it very clear that we are going to deal with issues that affect the society. And remember, paper 3 is about morality, and morality is divided into two: the vices and the virtues. So those are the excerpts, the essays that we are going to write at the end of the day. And therefore our students must be streamlined to understand that in this book we must pick the issues. Like here, we have already picked the issues of intolerance. We have already picked issues like corruption. We have already picked issues like denying freedoms, like the freedom to life and the freedom to speech. So those are the issues that we need to pick out of the text, because at the end of the day, the examination will be streamlined along that way. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. And as you continue to teach Parliament of Owls, we wish you well. And we have a lot of information in store. In fact, we had promised that we will be doing a lot of this in second term. We are just giving you a brief as we prepare for the great onslaught of Parliament of Owls. Thank you and be blessed.